So, I wasn't expecting a video game announcement to make me sit back in my chair and just stare at the screen for a minute, but that's exactly what happened when Spyro A Realm Beyond was revealed. Because for a lot of people, this is just another game announcement. For me, and I imagine for a lot of people around my age, this feels like reconnecting with an old friend you haven't seen in years. Not because they've been gone, but because life happened. You changed, they changed, the world changed. And yet somehow the moment you see them again, it feels familiar, comforting, like coming home. And that's kind of how Spyro has always felt to me. Now obviously, I'm excited to talk about the game itself. The larger worlds, the emphasis on flight, the focus on exploration, that all sounds fantastic. But honestly, what I've been thinking about the most since the reveal isn't really the game, it's what Spyro means, and what this series has meant to an entire generation of players, including myself. Because it's easy to forget just how important Spyro was when it first arrived. Back in 1998, the gaming landscape looked totally different. 3D platformers were still figuring themselves out. Developers were experimenting with how movement, cameras, exploration, and world design could work in fully three-dimensional spaces. And then along came a relatively small purple dragon boy created by a little studio called Insomniac Games. You might know Insomniac these days for things like Spider-Man, Ratchet & Clank, and Wolverine. But before all of that, they were the team that helped create one of the most defining platforming mascots of an entire generation. And what made Spyro special wasn't just the gameplay, it was the worlds, it was the atmosphere, it was the sense of adventure. It was the feeling that there was always something worth discovering beyond the next hill, behind the next wall, or through the next portal. At least that's what it was to me. When I think back to being a kid, I don't immediately remember gem counts or completion percentages. I remember feelings. I remember stepping into the artisan homeworld for the first time. I remember hearing Stuart Copeland's music. I remember soaring across huge gaps and wondering what secrets I hadn't found yet. I remember feeling like every level had stories hidden beneath the surface. And looking back now, I realize that those experiences shaped me in ways I couldn't possibly understand at the time. Because Spyro wasn't just teaching me how to play a game. It was teaching me how to imagine. It taught me how to ask questions. Who built this place? Why does this kingdom exist? What happened before I got here? Who are these characters when the adventure isn't happening? Those are all the exact same questions I ask today when I'm creating artwork, building characters, thinking about stories, or analyzing media. It's funny, when people ask where my love of world building comes from or why I'm so fascinated by storytelling and character creation, I would usually give them some complicated answers. But honestly, a big part of it probably started with Spyro, because these games taught me that environments tell stories. Architecture tells stories, character design tells stories, color tells stories, music tells stories. And that idea has followed me throughout my entire life, as an artist, a creator, as someone who loves digging into fictional worlds and understanding what makes them tick. Which is why, if I'm being completely honest, the later years of the franchise never really connected with me in the same way. And that's not criticism. I know a lot of people grew up with the Legend of Spyro trilogy, and I know there are fans who love Skylanders, and I'm genuinely happy that those games exist because they introduced Spyro to entirely new generations. But for me, the heart of Spyro was always that original Insomniac trilogy. The colorful fantasy worlds, the exploration, the curiosity, the sense of wonder. And that was the version of Spyro that stayed with me. That version that quietly shaped who I became. And honestly, that's part of why this announcement feels so significant. Because A Realm Beyond doesn't just look like a new Spyro game. It looks like a game that's reconnecting with the spirit of what made the series special in the first place. Not by copying the past, not by living in nostalgia, but understanding why those original games resonated so deeply. At least that's my hope. Because the older I get, the more I appreciate what Spyro was really about. And strangely enough, I don't think it was dragons, or gems, or platforming. I think it was resilience. I think every game begins with a challenge, something has gone wrong, a villain has caused chaos, the world needs help. And yet, Spyro just keeps moving forward. Not because he's the biggest hero, not because he's the strongest, not because he has all the answers, but because someone has to try. And honestly, I thought about that a lot over the years. Life rarely goes according to plan. Things break, people leave, dreams change, you face setbacks you never expected. You lose things, you outgrow things. Sometimes you even lose sight of yourself for a while. But the lesson that always stayed with me from those adventures was simple. Keep going, keep exploring, keep learning, keep growing. And don't let difficult circumstances convince you the journey isn't worth taking. Because there's always another horizon, another discovery, another chapter waiting for you. And maybe that's why Spyro still resonates with me after all these years. Not because it reminds me of who I was, but because it reminds me of who I'm still trying to become. A little older, a little wiser, still curious. Just with a lot more responsibilities now, and significantly fewer dragons, unfortunately. So when I watched that trailer and saw Spyro take flight again, it wasn't just excitement, it was gratitude. Gratitude for a series that helped shape my imagination. Gratitude for the artists, writers, designers, musicians, and developers who created these worlds. Gratitude for all the friends I've made through communities over the years. And gratitude for the fact that after all this time, people still care. Because that's the really incredible part. Spyro isn't coming back because one person remembered it. It's coming back because millions of people never forgot. Oh, man. Fans who carried those memories into adulthood, fans who introduced them to younger siblings, friends, partners, and eventually their own children. That's a legacy very few franchises ever achieve. So whether A Realm Beyond ends up becoming my favorite Spyro game or simply another chapter in a much larger story, I'm just happy to see the series flying again. And maybe that's the perfect way to look at it, not as a return to the past, but as the next step in a journey that's been going on for nearly 3 decades. And honestly, maybe the real treasure wasn't the gems we collected, maybe it was the friends we made along the way. Okay, I'm sorry. I had to, but seriously, I'd love to hear your memories with Spyro. Whether you started with the original trilogy, The Legend of Spyro, Skylanders, or you're discovering the series for the very first time through A Realm Beyond, let's celebrate the fact that our favorite purple dragon boy is finally back. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye!